excited today.
Okay. So just to confirm you for the biodata or the biography of the speakers, you have get all? Have you got all?
No, I haven't, but I thought maybe to save time, better to just introduce their name and their current positions.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, because we have a lot of
Speak.
uh,
Yeah.
speakers, right? Just
Yes.
to sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we are waiting for. Okay. So may I update everyone first
creating opportunities by working hand in hand. We can accomplish all our dreams for a better quality of life. Is love within our reach? Let us take a step for a vision so bold, making future plans for the people to grow in a life filled with happiness and faith. Hear us, Savior, living the future is our legacy.
Good morning, everyone. Just a few reminders before we start. First, we are requesting everyone to register online to receive updates from us. Second, if you have any questions or comments, please type them using the comments feature of YouTube. Third, when you type your comments or questions, please state your name and your organization. We encourage everyone to subscribe to the official YouTube channel by clicking the red subscribe button that you can see on your screen. Please also like and follow us in our official Facebook channel to be updated with the schedules of future webinars and other similar activities. Thank you.
Very good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to see you in this international seminar. Warm greeting from the beautiful city Bandung, West Java, Indonesia. The Honorable the Director, SEAMEO Secretariat, Dr. Ethel Agnes Valensula. Very good morning, Dr. Ethel. The Honorable Dr. Haris.
Good morning.
Good morning, Pak Haris. The Honorable Dr. Hamid Muhammad, the Director General of ECE, Primary School and Secondary Education, Ministry of Education and Culture, Republic of Indonesia. The Honorable, our keynote speaker, our panelists and moderator, Dr. Sheldon Shepherd, Board of Director of Asia Pacific Regional Network for Early Childhood, and then Professor Marek Tesa from University of Auckland, Professor Liu Hichan from Korean National University of Education from Korea, His Excellency Dr. Prakusal, the Director of Early Childhood Department, Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport, Cambodia, Professor Hui Tilam, I hope my pronounce correct, from Hanoi National University of Education, Dr. Ina Andriani, PhD, from University Pendidikan Indonesia, the Honorable Dr. Christine Chen, right now is the President of Association for Early Childhood Educator, Singapore. My close friend, Dr. Sandy Sanchez Montano, PhD, as a commissioner on Philippine Commission on Women from Manila. Siva Andina as a moderator, my close friend also. The Honorable Dr. Wahyudi, Deputy for Program and Development, SEAMEO Secretariat, our distinguished guests, my fellow staff, and ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to welcome you on SEAMEO Secretariat and SEAMEO CECCEP joint webinar on early childhood education and parenting in response to the pandemic COVID-19. In this special occasion, I would like to thank to Dr. Eto, the Director of SEAMEO Secretariat, for the trust and for the cooperation with SEAMEO CECCEP. SEAMEO CECCEP is the regional center for early childhood care, education, and parenting under SEAMEO Council and being coordinated by SEAMEO Secretariat among the 26 centers in South Asia. Ladies and gentlemen, let me give you in brief information about this webinar. The purpose of this webinar is to help the region respond to the challenges brought by the pandemic. As we know that the COVID-19 has changed the education landscape globally without exception. This COVID-19 keeps significant impact on early childhood care education. This is the reason why we held this webinar, to ensure that the result of this webinar should also be included in policy research forum of SEAMEO. To all respected keynote speaker, panelists, and participants, I would like to express my gratitude for showing your interest to participate in this webinar. I hope this webinar will become a central place to develop guidance and to address the viewpoint of early childhood care experts in response of this pandemic. I believe that the connectedness and close relationship between of us show how we could gather around as a big family. It has been a honor for us that you are willing to share your knowledge and your expertise. I'm beyond blessing having you as a part of SEAMEO CECCEP. Ladies and gentlemen, I can inform you that there are more 45,000 participants registered in this webinar. Let me repeat it. There are more than 45,000 participants registered in this webinar, coming from 40 countries. I repeat, 40 countries, include Asia, Australia, America, Africa, and Europe. We are united by our commitment to improve ECE stakeholder awareness. As SEAMEO trademark, we are here to support our communities and to show our solidarity. Ladies and gentlemen, to conclude my remark, I hope we could gather valuable insight and perspective from the respective keynote speaker and panelists. I look forward to hearing your views and developing our discussion during this program. In the end of my speech, I would like to announce that SEAMEO Secretariat and SEAMEO CECCEP joint webinar on early childhood care education and parenting in response to the COVID-19 is officially open. Thank you very much and blessing you a pleasant webinar. Very good morning. Now I will let Ms. Sandina as a moderator to lead this session. Please, Ms. Siva Andina, it's your turn. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Dwi, for the opening remarks. Good morning, everyone. I hope you are all in a good health and a happy heart despite the challenges during this time. I'm so excited to moderate our discussions today, as this is a very relevant topic to all of us around the world. It's a surprise that we have a quite high number of participants joining this webinar. And so I'm so excited. Young children and parents are among vulnerable groups facing this new normal, new life. So today's discussions is very important to all of us as practitioners, academicians, policymakers, researchers, and most importantly, as a parent ourselves, so that we can learn from each other on how we can support young children as well as other parents to get through these situations. So let me introduce you all once again to our distinguished speakers. Today we will have two keynote speakers. The first speaker is Dr. Sheldon Sever. He is a board of directors of ARNEC. And Dr. Sheldon will share his presentations on the impact of the new normal post-COVID-19 on vulnerable children. And then later on, after the panelists, Associate Professor Mark Tessars from the University of Auckland, as well as the SEAMEO CECCEP Advisory Board, will share his presentations on a view from Down Under during lockdown situations. And we will have a panelist coming from different countries in the regions, sharing their experience and expertise. So the first panelist is Professor Liu Hee-chan. He is the president of Korea National University of Education. He will share early childhood education in the pandemic era in the Korea. And then the second panelist will be Professor Bu Thi Lam from Vietnam. She is a Dean of Faculty of Early Childhood Education at the Hanoi University of Education. The presentations will be COVID-19 guidance for early childhood education and care services in Vietnam. And then the third one is Ms. Vina Adriani, PhD. She is also a member of advisory board of SEAMEO CECCEP and lectures in University of Education in Indonesia in Bandung. The presentations will be about navigating ECE Center ECE centers in the time of COVID, and she will share a lesson learned on this topic. And then the fourth panelist, Ms. Sandy Sanchez Montano, PhD, a commissioner on Philippines Commissions on Women. And the title of the presentations, Be Informed, Stay Healthy, and Fight COVID-19. And then we will have Mr. Prakosal. He's a member of governing board of SEAMEO CECCEP and also the directors of Early Childhood Education Department at the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport in Cambodia. Mr. Prakosal will share with us how a Cambodian embracing a new normal in early childhood education and parenting. And the last panelist is Dr. Christine Chan, the president of Associations of Early Childhood Educators in Singapore. And she will share with us how the Singapore embracing a new normal in early childhood education and parenting. So stay tuned. And it's gonna be interested to learn from across the world, from Korea, Vietnam, Indonesia, and down under from New Zealand. So I'm sure it will be excited to hear from all of our keynote speakers and panelists. So without further ado, I will give the time to the first keynote speaker, Dr. Sheldon Sheffer. You will have 15 minutes, and I will remind you if the time is about to end. Please, Dr. Sheldon. Thank you. Dr. Sheldon, I think you're still on mute.
Well, they were going to mute me. So.
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
Okay. All right. Pak Hadis, Pak Dwi, Ibu Sipia Andina, first of all, thank you very much for helping to organize this very important webinar. Dear colleagues and friends in the audience, I'm very pleased to be representing ARNEC, the Asia Pacific Regional Network on Early Childhood, at this important webinar. I want to focus especially on this issue of vulnerable children and what happens to them after COVID-19 not is finished, but after there's meant to be a new normal. And I'm looking especially at what happens after schools and ECD programs are reopened. Most of the discourse up to now has dealt with issues of what can be done now with children basically at home, or what will happen in terms of the mechanics of reopening, which grades first, how many hours, etc. But I think not enough attention has been paid to this issue about what have been increasing disparities as a result of the working from home, the schooling from home, and from the general pandemic itself. COVID-19 is a real emergency. The lives of young children are, in fact, being seriously disrupted from many perspectives. These figures change all the time, and they're probably going to start going down as we get more schools opening. But as of June 1st or so, there were 1.57 billion children out of school, 90% of all school age or school attending children. And 180 countries had various kinds of school closures for weeks or for months. The point I want to make especially then is that disparity, exclusion, and inequity have increased as a result of these school closures. And that COVID-19 will have a very long-term and far-reaching impact on everyone, but also especially on vulnerable, disadvantaged families and children. Now, I would argue the impact of the COVID-19 on the early childhood development subsector will be more than on other subsectors of education, primary, secondary, higher. Well, more families will be impoverished. We know already that the sheer number of families who are going back into poverty or are going into poverty is increasing. Many ECD programs, in fact, may close due to less support from families and communities. probably not government-funded or supported programs, but those supported by families and communities. There was a recent article in the Bangkok Post about the sheer number of programs, ECD programs, that are already closing or not planning to reopen because of this problem. Many ECD facilitators and teachers may leave the profession. Again, primary school teachers are more or less guaranteed a post to go back to. ECD teachers and facilitators in the private sector are not. They've not had salaries in many cases. They have probably found other things to do, and they may not ever return to early childhood development. Also, the quantity and quality of the ECD workforce will therefore be diminished. Some of the best ECD teachers might not come back. Some of those that are most energetic perhaps will not. So the general quality of the workforce will go down. And finally, budgets of ministries involved in ECD may be reduced, not only education, but others. As funds are transferred to other sectors, especially to the health sector, a certain percentage of budget from all ministries in Thailand, for example, have been transferred to the health ministry. And funding for early childhood development may be diverted within ministries of education to what are considered more important levels, whether it be primary, secondary, or higher. So the impact is greater on children already facing challenges of their development and their early learning. And this includes many, just a few for this purpose: children with delays and disabilities, children living in poverty, children living in remote and rural areas, children not fluent in the national language of instruction, children of refugee and migrant families, internally displaced persons, for example. Many of these children, first of all, no longer have access to child development and early learning services with a set routine and a trained workforce. Okay. Schools and ECD programs offered a set routine, an organized, systematic routine for many children, with a workforce trained to assist them in their development and learning. They no longer have access to this in many cases. And this is especially true for children with disabilities who would have received probably some special services in their own programs and schools and are not able to receive those at home. Many of these children also do not have access to adequate technological resources, computers, internet services required for online learning. The digital divide will therefore only increase. And there have been many, many articles from around the world showing the impact of the fact that the rich urban families have access to internet and the poor rural ones do not. The impact on this on child's learning is immense. Many of these children also live in families unable to provide the same support found in early childhood programs. They can't provide systematic cognitive stimulation or structured play or systematic early learning that would have been the hallmark of early childhood development programs. And the families perhaps lack the skills to actually do this. And there's also, these children will lose important interactions with other children if they're at home. And virtual learning, even for young children, is really no substitute for group play and stimulation. Many of these children also with their families fear stigma and greater stress because communities have less empathy for others and fear outsiders, especially migrants and refugees. We know this already from various situations around Asia, Southeast Asia, where families affected by the virus, perhaps some members of them ill with the virus, are basically not allowed to return to their original homes and communities. Many of these children will no longer benefit from non-academic programs that are focused on children of poor families, health services provided through primary school and early childhood, immunization, feeding and nutritional supplementation programs. There's already evidence to indicate that levels of immunization of children around the world are going down, not only because of poverty, but because families are avoiding health services. And a recent article talked about the sheer number of children in terms of children mortality and mothers in terms of maternal mortality that will increase because of pandemic. Many of these children are also more subject to toxic stress in their family environments. Again, reports around the world, the sheer number of the increase of calls to police and to emergency services linked to domestic violence because of lockdowns and greater poverty. This creates and increases the toxicity of the environments in which children are being raised. And many of these children are also falling further behind their vulnerable, marginalized peers. So whatever disparities they had at the beginning of the pandemic, whether it's because of urban, rural, rich, poor, abled, disabled, majority, minority, whatever disparities there were at the beginning of the pandemic have likely, and in many cases we know, have already increased, and therefore will mark what happens when schools and ECD programs are reopened. So with the new normal, whatever that means and whenever it happens, many vulnerable children may find their ECD program closed or its workforce, in fact, dispersed and not available, depleted in terms of number and in terms of quality. Many of these vulnerable children may not be able to enroll or re-enroll because of greater family poverty. They may have to attend, therefore, lower quality programs because they can't afford more expensive ones, or skip early childhood programs entirely and move directly to less expensive primary schools. This is the case where primary education, as in Indonesia, is essentially free, but early childhood development programs are not. Poor families will therefore do what they've done in the past and move children directly into primary schools without the benefits and experience of early childhood development programs. Many vulnerable children may no longer have an ECD program or a primary school as a sanctuary that can make up for the social and economic disadvantage of their families. Families which may have many fewer books, less educated, less literate caregivers. These programs were often seen as sanctuaries for children living in toxic environments or environments that had few development or education resources. If they can't re-enroll, if they can't go back, they will lose this sanctuary that they had before. Thus, in summary, their well-being will be seriously affected. More malnourished, less healthy, less sense of security, and with their cognitive and social emotional development seriously disrupted. And my point is that most of the discourse, again, around COVID and education doesn't look at this at all. It looks again at what's happening now in terms of helping children somehow continue to learn. It looks at the mechanics of reopening, but it doesn't look at what teachers have to do and parents have to do and systems have to do to identify the increased disparities that might have resulted from the pandemic and to do something about it. I think essentially, therefore, that we are moving backward. Okay. This is out of order. The possible mitigation strategies. Well, we're talking about, for example, feeding programs, nutritional supplementation, and family subsidies. Make sure these are back in place in any programs once they are reestablished. Special assistance, children with disabilities, home visits, adjusted online material. Make sure that children with disabilities have special attention when they go back to school, when they go back to ECD programs. They will need that to catch up to what they might have lost as a result of the pandemic. Low-tech and no-tech solutions to distance learning. We're seeing now that even when schools are reopened, there is the fact that many children will still, one way or another, have to work with distance learning, whether it be that some grades are open first and others not, that in some cases children go to school one week and not the next week. So we have to, in this case, continue to look for low-tech and no-tech solutions to distance learning. We have to look at how to strengthen family support strategies to meet the demands for distance learning, but also the risks of domestic violence. How can we provide support to families through the school, the ECD program, through other services to make sure that they weather these challenges they face and help and are able to help their children to get back into school. And there are also future strategies to make up for lost contact hours. And we have research from contexts where you have long summer hours or long summer holidays, even 2 or 3 week holidays, and the amount of learning that is lost as a result of that. So how do we make up for lost contact hours, especially for the most vulnerable children, and to overcome disparities from the impact of the pandemic? So I think and I guess I'm a fairly glass half empty kind of person with some amount of pessimism. Without such mitigation strategies, I think that the gains of the last decade or decades will be lost. We're looking at the achievement of Sustainable Development Goals, Goal 4.2 about early childhood development, even the goals that were found in the Education for All movement out of Jomtien and Dakar. I think we'll be going backwards in terms of the rates and other kinds of things. Why? Because more families will be impoverished, as I said. They're going to sink back into poverty, unemployment, and inability to be able to find work. The access of child development services will be reduced. They will close. They will be more difficult to access. Enrollment rates in ECD programs in primary schools will likely fall, partly because of poverty, partly because of fears of parents that they cannot be guaranteed that their children will be safe when schools are reopened. The strength and energy of the ECD subsector will be threatened, and the capacity of ECD personnel will be seriously compromised. We're looking at the last decade or more, a slowly increasing quantity and quality of the ECD workforce. And that's important. And also slow increases in the enrollment rates in ECD programs. My fear is that we're going to be going backwards instead of making more progress towards the Sustainable Development Goal. And we have to figure out how to solve that. So my basic message then is, how do we actually manage to be able to get schools and ECD programs to think now, education systems that support them, to think now about how to identify first the increasing disparities that would have arisen as a result of the pandemic and home learning and domestic violence and the lack of special services, and ensure that somehow this increase of disparities is taken into account when schools and ECD programs reopen. And that, I think, will be the challenge. Just one note in terms of positives. I think we're looking at certain things. For example, we're talking about the new normal, whatever that means. And that means how to build back better from the reverses we might have had. What can we do better to, in fact, go in the opposite direction? We're looking at curriculum enhancement, inclusion of things like resilience, coping with stress, even in the early childhood development curriculum. The greater engagement of parents and caregivers. Yes?
You have 1 minute left.
Okay, the greater engagement, and I wish I'd had a warning earlier, better and more use of technology and the opportunity to invest in family and community preparedness. I just want to say one thing, and in closing, about ARNEC is holding webinars itself to facilitate the ECD community response. There have been already 7 webinars, just 1 2 days ago on the ECD workforce, and there will be 2 more on the nutrition of young children and policy discussions. So please visit the ARNEC website for a copy of an article that this topic, my presentation, has been based on, but also a wide range of other resources appropriate to early childhood development during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sheldon Shepherd. Your presentation just in time. And it's really triggering further discussions. You've given such interesting informations, and I hope it's can refresh our mind on how it's really affecting young children's life around the world. And yeah, everyone who's joining us in YouTube channels, please send us your questions through chat box on the YouTube. But first, you have to sign into your Google account so that you can access the chat box. And we will select a burning questions to be discussed after all of the keynote speakers and panelists share their presentations with us. So yeah, leave questions on the chat box. And yeah, Dr. Sheldon's also inviting all of us to join our next webinars. And for you who have not joined as a member of RNEC, please sign up so that you can get regular informations on how the early childhood programs, issues, and informations policy across the regions, Asia Pacific regions. RNEC and SEAMEO CECCEP are close friends because we are working together in early childhood care and also in parenting. Okay, thank you once again, Dr. Sheldon Severs. Now we will have our panelists to share their presentations. Each panelist will have 10 minutes. And the first panelist is Professor Liu Hee-chand from Korea. He is the president of Korea National University of Education, and he will share with us how the Korean responds to the pandemics, particularly on early childhood education. Your time is yours, Professor Lee. Thank you.
To share ideas on early childhood education on this webinar. Today, I will mention about 2 points. One is current Korean situation of early childhood education during this pandemic period. Second point is what did we learn and how shall we prepare for the future? Okay, let's go to the first point. In Korea, traditionally, we begin the semester of spring, March 2nd. However, similar to many other countries, in Korea, COVID was so furious in March, MOE postponed the start of spring semester for all schools, including kindergarten to April 6th. However, the virus did not come down even in the early April. MOE postponed one more time. MOE decided elementary school open on April 16, judging that no further delay was not possible to secure the number of official 171 school days and the online lecture possible for elementary students. But in the case of kindergarten, MOE decided school open May 27, judging that online lecture might not be possible for kindergarten students because kindergarten students cannot pay attention to the one-way video clip for a long time. Instead, MOE asked in the early April all kindergarten schools to provide home learning program for kindergarten students and their parents until May 26. Most of all kindergarten already have had, fortunately, Keynote, which is very popular commercial platform for staffs and persons in charge of early childhood education to communicate with parents and to share various programs and ideas for hands-on materials with them. So each kindergarten uploads various online program. This program is not for students. This is a program for parents on the platform 2 or 3 times per week. And each kindergarten sends on mail or pass on personally offline program package to all children at least 1 time per 2 weeks. School asks parents to conduct both online and offline programs together with their children based on the direction of online home learning guide. You see example of offline program package contents. Another thing, all kindergarten operates emergency care system from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. for children whose parents have no enough capacity to care the children. Anyway, school opened on May 27, but from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. So many children back home 2 p.m. But still many children stay at the kindergarten for after school program from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. They will stay kindergarten because at home there is no parents to care them, right? All decisions directors can decide flexibly, for example, about curriculum and operation time, etc. Let's go to the second point. We're surprised. Public education. We believe public education might be able to be broken. So we need a plan B for maintaining the normal public education. We have to design the methodology for online learning for early childhood education with, of course, with a very careful and systematic approach for the next attack from the virus. Yeah, we know that we are all just an expert for the normal situation, not imagined situation. We need a teacher with ability to design online learning and to communicate with the parents. We need teachers with imagination to help students and parents. So we know that we need a new kind of teacher education. Another surprising thing, we know that we were just a novice in the unexperienced situation. So I suggest we need international cooperation for solidarity as well as sharing information on teaching method and teacher education, etc. So I suggest expanding SEAMEO's scope a little more to create a new early childhood education council that connects Northeast Asia and Southeast Asia or other countries. Yeah, we know that parents are not second in early childhood education. There should be parents' education to teach some kinds of skills and knowledge and to invite them to the workshop to share educational philosophy and ideas for children's future with kindergarten. It's more important. Parents should be able to take part in children's education more easily. We have to eliminate the inconvenience of childcare during working hours. Parents should not be just a supporter, should be a common partner for their children's education. Let's go to the conclusion. We have learning a current school system for a long time, maybe more than 2,000 years, right? Schools were gathered into one physical space in the same time. Then teachers instruct a given curriculum to many students simultaneously. We know that this kind of long-standing practice might be no longer sustainable. What shall we do? online technology in many countries. Online technology may temporarily offer us a solution. But more important, efforts should now begin to change the productive practice, uncomfortable practice that exists between schools and home, teachers and parents, education and society. We know that early childhood education is the most sensitive political arena where the most sensitive issues in our society converge. So I need to create an academic forum, domestic and international, for discussion about the change of various practice on early childhood education. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Lee. I think we are all learned something from Korea, that in Korea, the flexibility on the learning at the center or at home, it's you have that some kind of flexibility in this new normal situations. And also in regards to the curriculums, we heard that from your presentations, the centers might have some flexibility to develop their own curriculums in this challenging situations. And thank you for the reminders that it is important to see parents as a partner in supporting children's development. In fact, they are the main actors in doing so. So thank you once again, Professor Liu, for sharing with us how Koreans dealing with early childhood education systems in this pandemic and in this new normal period now. All right. Okay, now we will have a second panelist, Professor Bui Thi Lam from Vietnam. She's the Dean of Faculty of Early Childhood Education at Hanoi University of Education. Professor Bui Thi Lam will share with us lesson learned and best practices from Vietnam. The time is yours, Professor, and it is 10 minutes from now. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Lâm. I come from Vietnam. Can you see my presentation?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. Today I would like to share with you some information about response of early childhood education in my country to COVID-19. The first, I would like to talk about context in Vietnam. On 23rd January 2020, Vietnam confirms the first 2 cases of COVID-19. After that, all preschool was required to close from 3rd February to 11 May 2020. And, but some province or city allowed to open their preschool earlier. Since 11 May 2020, it is compulsory for Vietnamese students to return to school, and school are come back to normal. During the pandemic, the early childhood education subsector has this director, sub-national education authorities to convert to distance and online delivery to instruction and education children as follows. Provide online learning material, guidance to help parents, caregivers who are in need, or ECE and care services. Early Childhood Education Department in West Vietnam has introduced two guidebooks. The first is Handbook for Parents to Care and Educate Young Children. And the second is a tip on helping your children to develop reach their full potential. MOEC have made a digital data warehouse that contains 5,000 lessons and 2,000 videos of online education activity. In mass media, a national channel like BTV1 or BTV7 provide a series program of learning and playing with children, normally at 8 p.m. and 30 minutes per day. Programs about pandemic situation through mass media and help citizens to understand how to protect themselves and their family member from COVID-19. Besides the guidance come from MOEC, guidance also come from Province Department of ECE. There are 28 provinces in Vietnam who are building their own instruction that are suitable with their practice in support ECE and care services. ECE department introduce different software or web pages that used for teaching, such as BN Skill, Teach Online, or Zoom. They share learning resources such as contribute from different institutions, university, or preschool. In preschool, teacher in many classes and child care groups have frequently used Zalo, Facebook, email, or messengers to preschool for maintaining contact and exchange with parents and providing guidance to parents on care and education for stay-at-home children. Many public schools and private preschool have developed many videos that gives example on how to play learning with young children for parents. According to the reports from ECE Department of MOEC and province, there are some achievement following. Preschool has positive results in transforming from normal learning to online learning, in setting up a good partnership between school and family, helping parents to approach new technology in teaching and learning. Local government offer high-tech learning equipment for preschools, making detailed plan for preschool after social distancing periods and setting up safe environment for learning when children come back to school. Some limitations. It was not easy to use online communication with parents in some places where the life is under first circumstance and parents cannot access to technology. Software that used in ECE are not efficient enough in supporting parents or teaching young children. Some learning materials that are not adapted to local characteristics and language of children and family. Some children cannot access to physical activity because they stay home for a long time. Parents do not really believe in online learning in early childhood education context. It is difficult in helping vulnerable children who live in a mountainous area and who have space needs. Parents lack necessary knowledge and skill to understand and advise their children on play and learning for development. The last many private preschool have to close because of financial problems. Through resilience, some lesson was now included. It is necessary for preschool to work with new projects, new instructions that focus on supporting parents to educate children at home. It is called for further framework of national plan for ECE and apply high test in learning and teaching. And the last, supporting preschool, especially private school preschool in recovering after the pandemic periods. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's a very good presentation from Vietnam.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Butilai. I was, I thought I have unmute myself. Thank you, Dr. Ethel. So yeah, you still have 2 minutes left. But yeah, it was a clear presentation on how Vietnam's take several actions in response to COVID-19 in terms of early childhood education. And so we've learned that in Vietnam, you decentralize the mechanisms and guidelines to each of the province so that they can provide education to young children. And yeah, you also mentioned that it's a challenge to adjust ourselves with the technology and online systems. Dr. Sheldon has also shared earlier that not all of the family in this region are exposed to online platforms, so it's quite a challenge for some of the communities. I hope that we can learn more from our panelists later on, and also keynote speakers, second keynote speakers. Okay, so now we will have the third panelist sharing with us how ECE centers in times of COVID, a lesson learned from Indonesia. My dear friends, Ibu Fina Adriani, PhD. She's also a member of SEAMEO CECCEP Advisory Board and a lecturer of University of Education in Indonesia. Ibu Fina, the time is yours. You have 10 minutes to share your presentations with us.
Okay.
Please.
Yes. Yes, thank you very much, Mbak Dina, for a very nice introduction. Okay, so good morning, distinguished guests and speakers, ladies and gentlemen who joined the webinar through YouTube channel. Thank you to SEAMEO CECCEP for the invite. So today I would like to talk a little bit more on how COVID-19 perpetuates inequity in the ECEC, and also to discuss some lessons learned we can take from the situation. I would start my presentation by showing a quote from UNDP. The quote states that COVID-19, without any doubt, has become a magnifying glass for inequality. So in this presentation, I would like to talk at least 4 areas in the ECEC that are affected by this inequity. The first inequity that I would like to talk about is the inequity between ECEC center. For those of you who are not familiar with Indonesia, just to give a bit of an overview, Indonesia is a very enormous and also diverse country. For the past 10 years, it has enjoyed rapid economic development, but at the same time, there is also a huge discrepancy between low middle class family and also middle upper class family. Now, the situation, the inequity is also affecting ECEC in Indonesia. ECEC in Indonesia itself is a very complex field. But to simplify our discussion, I would just talk about the distinction between ECEC in Indonesia in the rural and urban area, and also ECEC in the formal and also non-formal sectors. So in general, the inequity of the ECEC during this pandemic time can be seen at least in the three aspects. The first one, ECEC in the rural area, they tend to have minimum access or no access at all sometimes to the internet. Then it creates difficulties on how to translate online learning as become the dominant discourse during this pandemic time. And also the second one is the instability of the workforce, which is mostly, and it's related to the third factor, which is the instability of economic capital. So the instability of the workforces is mostly because of the instability of the center's economic capital. As probably also in any other countries, most of the ECEC in Indonesia is run by private and also voluntarism. So they rely mostly on the parents' tuition fee. So hence, closing the ECEC center would mean limited funding, and the teachers can subject to retrenchment without any notice. Now, the second inequity can be seen in the teachers. ECEC teachers, I think all over the globe, are considered to be one of the most fragile profession in the society because of their low status as well as their low salary. So a survey done by Integrated Holistic National Paut Coalition in 2020 has also illuminated further the inequity between teachers in the rural and in the urban area, where the teachers in the rural area, they are very much affected by this pandemic. Their salary are being cut, and even some of them do not receive any salary at all during this pandemic time due to the closure of ECEC center. So another issue faced by the ECEC in this pandemic time is the invisibility of care and also play. I think there are at least two most important questions that we need to discuss during this pandemic time. The first one is that how can we translate care in the predominantly online mode of learning during the pandemic? As we all know that in the early childhood education, care plays a very important role, that the attention, the affection given by the teachers are as much as equal as any other form of stimulation. At the same time, we also notice that care becomes very much invisible because of the pressure to do online learning, but at the same time, it also becomes visible because of the difficulties to translate care in the online learning. Many parents, many teachers, they are now starting to discuss about what is ECE really mean, for example. Now, and the last issue that I would like to mention is related with parenting. Without any doubt, parents are highly affected with this pandemic. And as Dr. Sheldon explained earlier, for example, the situation is in fact worse for parents from vulnerable background. However, if you look at the dominant discourse disseminated in the media, for example, most of the discourses are targeted to parents from middle upper class background. So the issue is how to raise your children during this COVID time, how to negotiate between working and also taking care of your children. And to some extent, the discourse disseminated in the media seems to be detached from the reality. While the reality, for example, in Indonesia, most of the parents are coming from informal worker sectors. Here, the data from the Statistic Indonesia, for example, state that around 55.72% of Indonesian workers are actually work in the informal sectors. And by informal sectors, I mean as a kind of worker that requires to go work on a daily basis. They are being paid on a daily wages. So if they are not going outside, if they are not working outside, then it will mean that they will have their salary be affected. And very often the discourse disseminated in the media do not target those parents. But COVID-19 does not only tell stories about struggle. I think it also talks about possibilities. So during this pandemic, we see different form of resilience from the teachers, from the center itself, and also from the parents, for example. Here, for example, there are two news that go viral. It tells the story about the teachers who go extra mile to amidst all the difficulties to do online learning. They are still trying their best to reach out to the children, mostly from the marginalized background, and teach them. So obviously there will be issue about that this teacher seems to not implement the physical distancing, but at the same time, it shows the kind of resilience teacher possess. And also, the COVID-19 also illuminates new ways of developing teachers' professional development. So in my department, for example, Department of Early Childhood Education at Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia, we conduct weekly webinar, and the webinar reaches teachers in the rural areas, for example. So I was informed by one of the teachers, for example, that they collect money together to pay for the internet data, and then they went to the village hall, and then they set up an focus and watch the webinar together. So I think this illuminates how the online learning to some extent has allowed more teachers to gain knowledge with relatively low cost. So I think this shows both the resilience and also new ways to build teacher professional development. And also, I think because there has been a discussion, a struggle among parents on how to translate care, how to translate play in their home environment. So I think we also noticed an emerge of new ways of partnership between parents and teachers. So to conclude my presentation, I would like to mention at least 4 things. The first one, I think COVID-19 should become an opportunity for us to address inequity in ECEC. So inequity should not be concealed. Inequity should not be hidden. It should be discussed. And by discussing inequity, then we have an opportunity to address and also to overcome those inequity. And also COVID-19 has become a window to address the needs to improve schools' economic capital. Now, Indonesian government, they have initiative, for example, in terms of BOP, the school operational budget. And I think we need to discuss to what extent we can improve the budget in order to reach more schools and also to improve the school's economic capital. And I think COVID-19 also, talk about an opportunity to pay attention to parents' cultural and also social capital. And this may open up a discussion to have a gender-sensitive caring policy, like the ones adopted in most of the Scandinavian countries, in addition to the parenting program. Because very often the difficulties faced by the parents, it's not so much on how to raise the children, but how to navigate between their economic life and also their parenting duties. And finally, COVID-19 should become a moment to redefine the notion of elder care. Care should become something which is very essential, which is very fundamental in the ECEC, and I think this is our time to really bring care into the center. So thank you very much, and I look forward for the discussion among us.
Thank you, Ibu Vina, for the presentations and also for such a burning, triggering, point you made toward the ends of your presentations to all of us to think about and to discuss within our communities. Once again, I will remind the participants, you can type your questions on the chat box on the YouTube. But first, you have to log into your Google account so that you can access the chat box. And we will select the burning questions to be discussed later on with all the keynote speakers and panelists. Okay, now we will have the 4th panelists. Ms. Sandy Sanchez Montano, PhD. She's the Commissioner on Philippines Commissions on Women. Let me check if she's ready now. Ms. Sandy?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, so the time is yours for 10 minutes. And could you please share the presentations? Because it's, okay. It's on the screen now.
Okay, so good noon to everyone from the Philippines. We would like to say thank you so much for inviting us, and we hope we will be able to share to you the best practices that we will be able to embrace in the new normal in early childhood education. May I present to you the Philippine case, which is part of it is my personal experience, and some of it is the holistic approach of our government and our school in the Department of Education. If you can see in my profile, I cannot stay at home. I'm a nurse. So by profession, I'm also a nurse. And The outbreak of COVID-19, which resulted in various forms of community quarantine, has affected the delivery of early childhood education programs in the Philippines. As we all know, the president of our country, President Rodrigo Roa Duterte, would like people to be more informed, to stay healthy, and to fight COVID-19. That's why he set up the Interagency Task Force, or IATF, that would monitor every now and then what's happening within the locality in terms of our health, our safety. That's why we always say that in order for us to flatten the curve, we have to stay at home. So, basing on the word that was given by our speaker from Korea, sanctuary, the home is not the sanctuary of our children. So, we are the best teachers right now when it comes to educating our children. So, how to help our children cope with the challenges resulting from COVID 19? So, we would like to share to you that as parents or as a healthcare professional and as a ECE practitioner, we have to really stay calm because listening to them and offering a reassurance that these things would be fine soon is already a thing for them to be relaxed. They are more they have more time now to stay in the television and the social media. So as parents, we really have to monitor our children that is on social media on a different platform. That's why they need to be more empowered. And then one of the best practices that we are doing here in the Philippines is since we are all at home right now, we have enough time to talk with them. So they have the fears, anxieties, and we see to it that they should be, we should listen. And at the same time, there's no interruption of work right now. So every time that our small children, the 0 to 4 years old, ask for what is COVID 19, what will be the effect, how come my classmate's mother lost, died of COVID 19, or how come lots of healthcare professionals, nurses, and doctors die of COVID 19. So we should be very honest and accurate in our explanation because, you know, the brains of our little children is like a sponge. They absorb everything that we say. So we really have to be scientific in everything that we explain to them. So here in the Philippines, how do we stay connected with the school and the community? So there's an online platform, there's an offline platform, and sometimes I even see in the social media that the teachers will go to the school or the community just to give the certificate of graduation of their students. So that's how we are connected with our school to the family. So we also give our children the information about the signs and symptoms of COVID 19 because in order for them to understand this virus and we are facing the new normal, they should understand what is this virus all about, what's the difference between bacteria, the viruses, and these different diseases that we are encountering right now. And then here in our country, we are very heavy in modeling basic hygiene and healthy lifestyle practices. That's why in the Department of Education, by the time that they will open this August and September, there is this hand washing area wherein the children could do their hand washing before they go inside. And inside the school, they also have this hand washing area or the bassinet wherein they could wash their hands. Okay, and then sometimes we should not be complacent if our children are not talking. Maybe you thought that they are just trying to unwind or they just want a space of themselves, but maybe they are having this mental health illness. Okay, mental health illness now is a very high prevalent rate next to children that they would like to do suicide and everything. So as parents, as ECE provider, we really have to see to it that we ask them, how are you? What are you doing right now? And hope you are enjoying even though you are at home. So um, we should be thankful that our government is very proactive when it comes to the benefits, the beneficiary of our children and the women. Okay, so I would like to share to you the Department of Education plans in opening now the school year by August and September. So amidst the difficulties and challenges posed by the pandemic, the Department of Education is committed to ensure the provision of continued learning programs to children 0 to 4 years old. This will contribute to bringing about normalcy in their education activities while facilitating the learner's development. It is important during this time that young children are provided with positive learning environment. So how do we mean by positive learning environment? As we have seen or shared before that this is now their sanctuary. Your home is their sanctuary. So we have to provide a space for them that if they go there inside that room or inside in that nook, in that space provided for them, it is already time for them to learn. So, what are the following tasks that the government now is undertaken in partnership with our Early Childhood Care Development Council, which is part of the Department of Education? The following tasks undertaken during the preparation period by the time the school would open, private and government. We conduct the usual community mapping to assess the situation in the community prior to the opening of the centers. So when we talk about community mapping, they should be aware that hey, it's August. We prepare for schooling, so the centers will be open. So there is what we call the balik eskwela. So parents and the community go to the school to prepare the facilities, the room to be cleaned up, to be sanitized. Then number two is profiling of the young learners 0 to 4 years old. In this way, we'll able to know what are their fears, anxiety, what is the state of health that they are right now. Because in the Philippines, there are some newborn cases that was already positive of COVID-19. So we don't want that they will be exposed to the school and the community as well. So number three is we have to do the assessment of learner's guide to early education, which may be done through home visit while strictly observing health protocols. So if you can see, there's a lot of PPE or the personal protective equipment, wearing masks. Okay, we go from one area to another just to check if they are doing fine, but we have to see to it that we observe the safety protocols. And then number four is we conduct consultation and survey on the expectation perception of the post-COVID. So what are, because here in the Philippines, it's only this June that we are on a general community quarantine. So we are doing a little by little adjusting to the new normal, which is building back better. So when we talk about the building back better, we would like to ensure that the centers are sanitized and have undergone disinfection procedures. Hand washing facilities are available with water and soap. Yes, this is additional cost to everyone for the private and the government school system, but this is the best way to be healthy and to be safe. And then number six is encourage the implementation of Bayanihang policy.
2 minutes left.
Yeah, by scheduling the parents to assist adhering strictly to physical distancing, okay, and inventory instructional materials and preparation of learning instruction materials worksheet, okay. So as a parent, as a mother, I would like to share to you my 10 top 10 parenting tips, okay. I have 3 kids right now, okay, age 21, 17, and 10 years old. So this is how we do it. My one-on-one quality time to explore their interests. So my second child would like to wear to model the PPE, and sometimes he would go to donation to the hospitals. And we would like to share to you this learning platform I did with my
5 points.
child.
What are the 5 essential PPE items used by the frontliners?
So this one, I'm teaching my youngest child, Stephanie, 10 years old, while she is on the online class on what are the important things you use to protect yourself from the COVID-19, which is the PPE. Okay, next is So she was able to draw here protected and unprotected. Okay, and then we make sure that there is harmony in family at home where we pray together before going to bed. We take turns in praying for kids to express their innermost feeling to God, and we want them to keep calm and manage stress. We ask our kids their fears, anxiety, and their must do to provide themselves with post-COVID. So we would like people to stay at home, but as a nurse, as healthcare professionals, and as government official, I see to it that I am there to assist in every way we could. And my husband, when we went to one indigenous people's community, he was able to paint good paintings. Now it's on sale. That is one way for us to help the community. And there is this live session every evening, keeping the family together during lockdown. So far, this is our share from the Philippines side. Thank you and good day.
Thank you, Dr. Sandy, for sharing with us how the Philippines as a country responds to COVID-19, and especially on early childhood care and education. And you highlight it's important to involve a community, not only parents, but the whole community in bringing back children to school. So to prepare everything before the children's coming back to schools. And also thank you for sharing your family tips with us. It is important to stay together, not only physically, but mentally together at home with your family. Thank you, Dr. Sandy. Now we will have Mr. Prak Kosal. He's a member of SEAMEO CECCEP governing board from Cambodia, and also the directors of Early Childhood Education Departments at the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport in Cambodia. Will share with us lessons learned and best practices from Cambodia. Mr. Prak Kosal, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Yeah, you have 10 minutes, sir.
Okay.
It's yours.
So, very good morning, everyone. Dr. Vivi Priano, Director of SEAMEO CECCEP, Dr. Sheldon from ANEC, Board Director, and Dr. Etel from SEAMEO Secretariat Director, and all of keynote speaker, and dear for all of panelists and all of participants who are watching by YouTube.
Dr. Prak, we will take over your presentation from here since it's supposed to be in slideshow. Okay.
Right.
Okay. You can just say the name.
Okay, so can move to next slide. Okay. So first of all, I would like to thank for the SEAMEO CECCEP that work closely with the SEAMEO Secretariat who host the webinar today. So from Cambodia side, I would like to share some point that very important new way in the new normal for early childhood education and parenting in Cambodia. For the response to the COVID-19, the royal government of Cambodia has issued the guideline to all of government body and in the national level and subnational level to prevent the spread of virus COVID-19. And then the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport, under collaboration with the Ministry of Information, has created a new TV program called the National TV 2, and or we can call the Education TV, by broadcasting the distant learning of all education service. And the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport also issued a guideline to guide the provincial education and the public school and private school to prevent the spread out of the virus COVID-19 as below. The first one, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport also issued the guideline for the the early school short vacation and delay till today. We do not reopen yet for all of school, including public and private school. And then we also, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport also issue the guideline for the distance learning, including the TV program or social media and the poster picture, something like that. Next slide. And also let me share you in the 4 new normal for early childhood education in Cambodia side. This is the new one that we are work closely with the development partner. And here is we work close with the Plan International that we produce the poster, including 5 key points for parents have the children at home, including below area. The first one, we are sharing or guide them for washing hands. And the second point is language development. And third one is awareness and thinking development. And the fourth is daily work habit for the parent, how to do with their children at home. And the last point, we produce the game material and the playground for their children. This is this picture that we guide all of the parents have to prepare everything during the lockdown of school for the kids can play at home. That's supported by Plan International. Next slide. And for the second area, as a new norm, that COVID-19 that make me hard to find the new way for early childhood education. This is a way up for the parental education that we don't know how to produce, but we are discussing among our technical team. We need to produce the video clip for the parental education. Especially we produce in the 34 episode supported by GPE that we are broadcasting by TVK2 or we call TV Education TV and social media that we post in Facebook or something like that. The area of the parental education that we produce in the video clip, we are focusing the content of child right that we guide the parent how to know the child right. And the second point is we guide the parent about the health care and nutrition, pregnancy women, environment and hygiene, and child development from 0 to 1 years old, and the children child development from 0 to 5 years, and communication and language development, and domestic violence and child protection. This is the content that we produce the video clip in our area. Next. And the third activity, the third way we are producing the video clip by follow the preschool curriculum in Cambodia. We have we have 5 area, 5 subject in our preschool curriculum, and we also produce the video clip, 14 episode of video clip by following the preschool curriculum that's supported by UNICEF and also supported by government budget for broadcasting by education TV, and private TV and social media that we are post there. The area is focused on just try to give the parent just only the model of activity for the motor skill development, how to guide the parent to play with the children at home. And the second area is we try to guide the model of activity for the pre-mathematics development that the parent can play with them at home. And the Khmer language model activity and science skill model activity. And the last subject is the social study development that we try to guide the parent activity at home, like you see in the picture in the bottom. we try to invite a expert for the cameraman, and also with my Secretary of State of Ministry of Education to join with us. Next. And the back please. Back one more. Yeah, here. This is the new norm. This is the new way for parental education that, we are produce the video clip, but the video clip cannot access for all of family, like especially like Dr. Vina said that the rural, very rural area people cannot access with the video clip or online like the smartphone, something like that. And then we try to discuss among our technical team. We need to produce the radio program that can broadcasting, that can the people who are living in the rural area can access with the radio program. Our radio program, we are try to write. We are try to develop certified early childhood education story, like the 50-minute story. We try to produce the story of early childhood education. The content of the story is like including child rights and health care and nutrition, pregnancy, women, social development by link to the preschool curriculum, and motor development follow the preschool curriculum, and the mathematics by they also follow the preschool curriculum for the children 3 to 5 years old, and science development also follow the preschool curriculum, and the domestic violence and child protection and language development. This is we are done. We are finished to produce the radio program and develop the story program for early childhood story that's supported by the UNICEF and World Bank in Cambodia. We are also broadcasting by the national radio that can hear for all of people who are living in Cambodia, and also we are broadcasting by the private radio program as well. This is the new way that we try to find the new way under respond to the COVID-19 in Cambodia. Next slide.
Yeah, pardon me, you still have 1 minute left.
Okay, this is some activity that to share you. Like this is some picture that we are go to visit the the radio studio to develop, because the radio program or early childhood education story is not one person just play, but we need to some more people, including children, play as a parent, as a children, as a like the core teacher or expert, something like that. And also we are broadcasting by the radio program. Okay, thank you very much for allowing me to share with all of you here. Thank you.
We thank you, Mr. Prakosal, for sharing with us how you are in Cambodia reaching out to parents using social media. And also we learn how to reach out to those family with limited access to online platforms, to internet, that is through radio platforms. Thank you, Mr. Prakosal. Now we will have the last panelists, but it's not the last ones to present today, because after this we will have the second keynote speaker sharing with us. But before that, Dr. Christine Chan, the president of Associations of Early Childhood Educators in Singapore, will share the lesson learned from Singapore in embracing a new normal. Dr. Christine, are you ready?
Yes, I'm coming. I'm sharing my content.
Okay, you will have 10 minutes to share with us. And allow me to remind you if the time is about to finish.
Oh.
Would you, okay.
Wait,
yeah. It's on the screen now.
Yeah, but I need to go to the first one. Okay. Well, good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for including me in your webinar. Singapore embarked on the new normal when the circuit breaker came into effect on April 7th. This presentation addresses that 8-week period when the new norm actually came into effect. So, what is the new norm? The new normal bridges school and home divide. Okay, and in particular, I would like to focus on the new learning that has been taking place through home-based learning. So, home-based learning is an online learning where teachers, preschool teachers actually would go online, okay, and teach the lesson. And when they do that, they actually go into the homes of parents and families and meet the parents on their home ground and not in the school ground. So that's something new. Then in home-based learning, learning is also done in the home instead of sending homework for parents to work with children. And learning online is brought to the home, teachers, children, and parents. And this is a start of the learning communities that we've been creating. So what happened to the hard-to-reach families? For families and children who are not able to go online for one reason or another, the home-based learning package will be sent to the home by teachers. And from our feedback, okay, this is what one teacher said. We do not have difficult parents, only parents in difficult situations. Now, all this information that I've just shared with you came about through the community of practice that ECEs have been conducting during the circuit breaker. The community of practice made up of our members. We started with a small group of just 15 people, but at the end, when we opened the doors, we had 30, which is not bad. It's 100% increase. So we doubled ourselves. The topics were children and their families at home, voices from children. So we hear our community of practice reporting how children at home miss their children, their friends in school and their teachers in school. And there are children who are still in school because their parents are in essential services. They too miss their friends because most of their friends are at home. And their teachers may not be the same teachers that they used to have. And another topic we had was reaching out to families in need, which I spoke earlier, how we delivered packages to each home. And supporting the changing roles of teachers, because now teachers will have to learn how to teach online and not face-to-face, how to make sure that their hair is in shape, they have good lighting, and all the technical skills that is needed. So we had a session on how do we support the new role of teachers. Then we came on to the next topic was, are we ready for school? And when we were talking about readying our school, the community of practice came up with a new series called Conversations. Okay, and the theme for our conversations is educators uniting in the new norm. So what's in this educators uniting in the new norm? First, we'll talk about back to school, and it's going to happen June 17th. Singapore went back to school on June 2nd for the 5 and 6-year-olds, June 8th for the 3 and 4-year-olds, and yesterday for the under 2s and infants. So far, what has been reported has been positive, but in our conversation of back to school, settling into the new norm, we will get more information about how children are settling in. Then we have supporting children, their families, and educators the next following week, and teaching and learning in the new norm. And finally, leading and inspiring stakeholders in the new norm. So through these conversations, we hope to garner all stakeholders in coming together. So what we want to see is people coming together in the new norm. So the new norm, besides bringing people together, also heralds communication, collaboration. Okay. The following slides will show you of the collaboration that we have with the Ministry of Education and the Early Childhood Development Agency, ECDA. FLAIR. FLAIR is a program by the Ministry of Education to lay the foundation in the English language and development of positive dispositions towards learning English. FLAIR was started in 2007 to help kindergarten 2 children who will require additional support in learning the English language. These children whose home environment lacks listening and speaking opportunities as well as reading materials will be in FLAIR programs with a teacher called ProFLAIR. MOE works with stakeholders such as ACES to implement the program to preschool centers. So ACES has been working with the Ministry of Education for 13 years now. And our focus is mainly on professional development. And because of this circuit breaker, we were not able to conduct professional development face-to-face. So we just recently, a week ago, conducted an online professional development learning circle with 448 teachers. And I'm sure it's nothing because I think Indonesia, Ibu Vina talked about going online for professional development. I'm sure Indonesia has more teachers than we do. The next collaboration is with ECDA. Okay, Kickstart is a program led by ECDA, and we collaborate with ECDA. The objective of Kickstart is to give children from low-income families a good start in life, and the desired outcomes are age-appropriate child development, improved parent-child interaction, and earlier enrollment and preschool attendance. So the Kickstart components is made up of home-based home visitation from birth right up to year 12 months, and then when they are toddling around, they'll go into a community-based Kickstart playgroup. Parents and children will come to a community center for parent involvement and teacher involvement education. We call actually the people facilitators, not teachers. When the child reaches about 3 years old, they go into center-based care where they have an enhanced support system for these children. So basically,
Dr. Christine, you have 2 minutes left.
2 minutes, thank you. So basically, it provides warm and responsive parent-child relationships, nurturing environments, and holistic support across health, early childhood, and social sectors. During this pandemic, we actually worked with ECDA, and we looked out for foundations, and we raised $40,000 for Kickstart families to buy. We raised $40,000 to buy food vouchers for Kickstart family. Finally, our collaboration went beyond the shores of Singapore with the Childhood Education International, because our association is an institutional member of Childhood Education International, and we just just recently started a group called Southeast Asia and Pacific Educators Forum, and the vision is bonding together of early childhood educators. So, what does the new normal bring? New normal embraces teachers and parents working together on common grounds, people coming together and bonding, and increasing collaboration. Indeed, we see bright horizons in the new normal. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Christine, for sharing with us Singaporean strategy in this or in early childhood educations during COVID-19, and to remind us that these situations bring us to realize that more and more collaboration is needed to get through these situations. Thank you once again, Dr. Christine. And now we will have the second keynote speakers from Down Under. So we've been listening, learning from keynote speakers, panelists above the equator. Now I would welcome Associate Professor Mark Tisars, PhD. He's also a member of advisory board of SEAMEO CECCEP and from the University of Auckland. He will share with us how New Zealand have been dealing with the COVID-19. Are you ready, Professor Mark?
Kia ora koutou. Thank you so much for this wonderful introduction, Ms. Dina, and my warm greetings to all of you from Down Under. Thank you so much to SEAMEO CECCEP and to governing board and to everybody else from SEAMEO countries and all around the world who are tuning in and listening to these wonderful speakers at this conference, at these webinars, to talk about issues that are quite pertinent to our current, not only global, but also local positioning. Lessons from Lockdown for Early Child Education View from Down Under is the title of my short talk, and I really welcome your comments or your or you connecting with me. So I have included my contact details on a slide. As a keynote speaker at this conference, I was asked to present on a couple of issues which I have listed here. Particularly on the topic embracing a new normal and the questions around what does this social distancing mean for learning and play, and what's going to happen with the parents, how they deal with the balancing work and child raising and child rearing, and what's going to happen with the marginalized communities. And I thought that I'm going to sort of produce a very short thought piece that will try to somehow present some of these issues. But first of all, because I'm from New Zealand, I have to say that New Zealand has done really well in a COVID-19 crisis. We had, you can see the graph, which sort of positions New Zealand as starting at one point, but as now for 20 days having no new active cases in New Zealand. And we have moved to alert level 1 now, which means the life is just as before the pandemic started, but the borders remain tight sealed and closed. And we had this notion that our government, and I have to say our female leader, which I think is very important for those of us in education, to understand the power and importance of a female leader and of a mother. She went hard and she went early. And we were in a complete lockdown for about 4 weeks, and we have managed to eliminate the virus. And however, what I'm going to talk about is not about the virus, but what was left after the virus has disappeared. And I want to present to you some of those lessons from the lockdown. What have we learned? And what have we learned is that technologies, they do not fix educational problems. We've been all became addicted and linked with technologies, and everybody became educated through through and connected via online services. And it sort of seems like technology is going to resolve all the issues that were part of the educational system. There was almost some excitement with some educationalists who saw this as an opportunity. But I would argue, and I would want to say that it didn't necessarily fix our educational problems. It has particularly enhanced them and showed us what we were dealing before we went to lockdown. The second is that parents are the first teachers indeed. We always knew that, and we always say that. And I'm myself a former early childhood teacher, so I know that we all say that parents are the first teachers, but we really entered the situation where no matter whether it was in cities or in rural areas, whether it was a wealthy country or whether it was a developing country, parents became locked in with their children and spent substantial time with them and became their first teachers. I mean, there's broad particular challenges and there's broad particular for some parents to really reconnect with their children. But most importantly, it showed the connection between parents and children cannot be in a world post-COVID-19 underestimated, and we need to return to that idea that parent-teacher partnerships are really essential for successful early child education. The other thing that we learned is that we really need a place, space, and bodies in education. We abandoned schools and abandoned playgrounds and abandoned early childhood centers and places and spaces of learning and joy and of play. They cannot be replaced by online link and experience. There is something about body in education and the way we learn just by observing, watching, making a wink, or just making a connection with each other just by being in a close proximity. For young children, by touching things and playing with each other, whether it's running around or gently exploring each other's physicality. So it's really important not to forget that play, space, and bodies are very much connected, an essential part of education, and that's what we learned. That's what our children were missing the most. What have we also learned on a sort of more structural point is that communities can work together, support each other, and they can offer particular kindness. They can be kind to each other, and they can be kind to each other in a way that was unexpected beforehand. The cheering, the signs, the bear hunts that many countries have experienced, the checking on your neighbors and making sure that despite we couldn't be physically together, we maintain social closeness is really, really important. And I wonder whether what we've learned from this is that we need to carry it with us into the post-COVID-19 world. What we've learned in this pandemic needs to be really essential for our early childhood care and services and for our community overall, really pertinent towards future. What we also learned is the language, and that physical distancing is not the same as social distancing. We've been somehow led to believe that, and I heard it everywhere in the discourse, and it's in the media, it's in the newspapers, it's in seminars. We're talking about that we are in a time of social distancing. I strongly disagree. I think we are in a time of physical distancing, and we may be keeping a 2-meter distance, or as the United Nations supposed to show you, it's the size of a bear, which I quite love. And it's the social distancing that's really is happening. It's a social distancing that really shouldn't be happening. It's that kind neighbor, that image of a neighbor reading the book to a child on a balcony who lives next door. That's we can't afford to have any form of social distancing or marginalizing anybody in this time. We need to stay away from each other bodily wise, but we need to maintain social connectivity. And the final point that I want to raise is troubling new normality. I know this seminar and this conference is called New Normality, but I do wonder what's normal about this. The playgrounds, which are sort of covered with crime tape, or if it's empty classrooms and spaces where children play, there's nothing normal about that. And I want to trouble that new normality because I refuse to accept that this will be our new normality. And it also makes me wonder whether what we had before COVID-19 was normal. And a lot of us working in education, we know how many struggles we had with that system and what was happening at that time. So I don't want to accept new normality. I want to challenge it. I want to make sure that we understand that this is very unusual, unprecedented time for our communities and our local and global environment. And we can really make some kind of change about it and move from it, learn from it, support each other, and enter into the space that will become a new normality. But it's not going to be these empty spaces and distancing. So those lessons, what became really visible? For me, it is, and I understand that Dr. Adriani talked about it, it's enhanced inequalities. Really, the COVID-19, if it has done something for our community, it has enhanced inequalities, both educational but also class-based. It has really perpetuated the idea of urban-rural divide and what was happening for children in urban and rural areas, and what was happening also in different counties, countries, and communities. And also there were quite strong ethnicities divide. The second thing is that we started this year by a huge planetary crisis, bushfires in Australia, huge climate change summits, and we sort of tend to forget about that with this kind of human crisis. And I have to say that we can't forget about it. It really remains the most significant issue that we face. And post-virus, post-COVID-19, we're going to be facing these issues. And it's our youngest children that's going to have to be marching and that have to be demanding the better planet for themselves and for their educational future. And the third point is that we really need a high-quality education and research on COVID-19 and what kind of impact it had on children, childhoods, education, and parenting. We are lacking that research. We have a lot of evidence, which I would call anecdotal evidence, and there is a lot of experience, but how to translate it into something that's really powerful and evidence-based, in the best sense of word, I'm using evidence-based research on COVID-19 and what it really means. And that's a wink sort of to SEAMEO CECCEP, because that's a great area that they can further pursue, and I'm sure other advisory board members would agree. So to finish up, what are the recommendations from the lockdown, the way I see it? I think that education requires both philosophical and structural attention. And it's not only early childhood, it's the overall education. I think it needed that attention for some time, but COVID-19 has helped us to really understand the issues that are with early child education per se, both philosophically, but also structurally. We also learned that the whole online digital distance forms of education that sort of came to us overnight will not resolve those existing issues that we had. And therefore, we need to look elsewhere for that fix, if that fix actually exists for our education. Quality content of education, policy, investment into education, working conditions of teachers, professionalism, partnerships that we create, children's rights, school readiness, etc. All those issues, they remain to be discussed and researched and implemented in these partnerships. We can't forget about them. We can't lose track of those research projects that were happening before COVID-19. We need to carry them through because they really matter and they will come back. And as a final point, to connect and to collaborate with all stakeholders, both nationally and internationally, is really important. And that's a main lesson from the lockdown. We can do it in various forms and various shapes, but we need to do it with all stakeholders, with children, with parents, with the policymakers, with the people from the Ministry of Education, with international teachers and groups and professors and so on. We all are in it together and we can collaborate. So to finish off, I just want to really finish up with 3 quotes that I quite like. And they talk about the educational futures, all of them. And I think we do need to look at the educational futures in a time of COVID-19. They sort of link to the idea of philosophy of education. And I purposefully looking at 3 people that are from very different times and from very different worlds, because this is a global issue. We got Aristotle from the, from the old Greek white philosopher that sort of argues that the educated differ from the uneducated as much as the living from the dead. And we know it, and we know that it's really important for our young children. And then we have a John Dewey, who is a very famous thinker and philosopher, American progressive educational philosopher, who says that education is not preparation for life. Education is life itself. And boy, don't we just all know it right now, how education is the life itself for parents, teachers, and for children. And then we have a Nelson Mandela who sort of presents that kind of non-Western, non-white perspective for me, coming from that idea of a struggle being part of that environment, who argues that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. So we cannot forget about education because it really is the most powerful weapon. And I'm going to leave it there, and thank you so much. I much appreciate it, and welcome any comments or contacts from any of you. Kira.
Thank you, Professor Mark Tessars, for sharing with us how it's going on down under in New Zealand, and to remind us that, yes, we need to stay away from each other physically, but this time should bring us more awareness and pay more attention to our society. Thank you so much. Yeah, so now we will have a questions and answer sessions. I will ask my colleague from SEAMEO Secretariat, Ms. Anti, to share the questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Iva. So thank you again for all the speakers. Due to the limitation of time, we try our best to summarize, only come up with one questions coming from more than 5,000 participants in our YouTube channel right now. So this question, one question will go to all speakers. And here's the question. Many parents have less educational attainment and don't have access to internet. How can they adapt to the new normal, especially in the teaching and learning process? So this question is coming from Generous Baldosa and many other participants in our YouTube channel. Thank you.
Yeah, so now I would like to welcome our keynote speakers first. Dr. Sheldons, to give your opinions, and each of the speakers, keynote speakers and panelists will have 1 minute to share your thought on these questions. Dr. Sheldons, are you ready, or yes. Maybe, yeah?
Yes. Thank you. I'm in fact not going to answer that question because I think the other panelists can do it better than I do. I just want to reiterate what I said at the beginning. Most of the time we're looking in terms of responses about what's happening now with children at home, or maybe when schools reopen. And we're not looking, and it rarely came up in any of the presentations, about what happens in the longer term. Schools have opened, they're going to reopen. Many vulnerable children will not re-enroll. Those that do will enroll more vulnerable than before. Greater disparities, whether it's disabilities, urban, rural, digital divide, etc. So they will be more vulnerable and more marginalized. And there has to be a discussion, which has not yet happened in most of the webinars I attend, about how schools and ECD systems and education systems in general are going to identify and assess these increasing disparities and do something about them. Because if they don't do something about them, these vulnerable children are going to become simply more and more behind their less vulnerable peers, and the impact of the pandemic will last a very long time. We really have to get that into the discourse, and not only the good practices about how to get parents involved in better online learning, etc. So I hope we can move the discourse in a different direction.
Thank you, Dr. Sheldons, for reminding us that more and more vulnerable children will coming back to the ECE education systems. Now, Professor Mark Tessars, you have 1 minute to share your thought on the questions.
Thank you. I think that's a very important question, and it's sort of I don't feel really competent to really answer that question. I think it's such a complex question that belongs to to those local communities where the question is being asked. All we can do is support. I think that there is a huge opportunity, and as I said in my presentation, huge learning from the community engagement that's happening and the care that's been happening between people. And my question is how that kindness And I would really call it as a kindness, because kindness comes from the word kin, and kin means being related to each other. And traditionally, kindness happens only between a kin. I wonder how that kindness can be actually extended between families, between communities, and how to support each other and help each other in this process. Because not everything can become about the access to internet. Not everything can become about the best teaching and learning process, because this is not time as normal. I would argue these communities that struggle now must have struggled also before. So there is something structurally problematic that needs to be fixed towards futures, and the way we look at the educational futures for those communities need to be different. I know it's not the answer that will give in any way justice to the question that I understand is that everyday struggle. However, if there would be an easy answer, I would really give it. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mark Cesar. Now, Professor Liu Hee-chan, you might want to respond to the questions.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yeah, in Korea, the internet is very popular, but still we have some family without internet access. For those parents and children, Korean government and Korean kindergarten operate two kinds of programs. One is a home learning program package. Each kindergarten deliver the package to each home without internet or with internet. Okay. Then within the package, we have description to handle how to handle the package. And second way is we operate emergency care system. Parents send the children to kindergarten. Then kindergarten operate the system from 9 to 6 p.m. So we can handle that kind of problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Liu. And now, Professor Bui Lam, you might want to respond to the questions.
Okay. In Vietnam, the internet is very familiar for people, and most of parents use Facebook or Zalo. Yeah, I think we can increase opportunity for parents to best use the internet by simple way, like Facebook or Twitter, and we provide guidance for parents by the material with more immersive and not much letter. And beside the internet, I think we can provide guidance for parents in another form, like in TV or by paper. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Bui Lam. Ms. Vina Adriani, PhD, you might want to share your thoughts on the questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Dina. So thank you for the question. I think perhaps we need to redefine what we mean by learning and teachings in the ECE context. I also think that we need to go beyond the binary of learning and playing, caring and teaching. I think in the ECE context, they are all integrated and also interwoven with one another. So we have to ensure the parents that while they are playing with the children, they are actually teaching the children. And second, I also think that we need to go beyond the deficit model of parents and parent teams. I think we also need to believe that parents, they have capacity, they have agency to develop their own parenting style, provided that they are given assistance. And by assistance, again, I'm referring to the things that I mentioned in my presentation, that perhaps there is a need to develop a gender-sensitive caring policy in addition to the existing parenting program. so that those parents, particularly the one from a vulnerable background, can navigate their economic life and also their parenting duties. I think that's all for me. Thank you, Ms. Dina.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Vina, for sharing your thought. And now, Mr. Prakosal, you might want to share your thoughts on the questions. As you shared with us earlier that you in Cambodia you're using radio platform. You might want to add some more information.
Yeah, thank you very much for moderator. As you know, you hear me?
Yes.
Are you here?
Yes, it's
okay.
clear. You have 1 minute.
Yes. So to respond to the family who cannot access the online program and internet or smartphone, like my presentation, we produce the radio program that we are developing early childhood education short story that broadcasting by radio program, and the very important for the parent as a play role, very important role that respond to take care of the children at home, and also for the radio program is not only respond to the all of parents, but not only respond to the parent who cannot access in the online program, but also to the people who are living in the rural area. And also we are in Cambodia, we are also developing, the MLE radio program that we use the radio station in local province to develop the 3 different language for the ethnic minority children who are living there, that's supported by UNICEF. We are also developing the radio program for MLE program that respond to inclusive education in the ethnic minority area in Cambodia, beside with our radio program as well. This is to respond to the family who cannot access in the online program and the smartphone, something like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prakosal, for sharing the information. And now I would like to invite Ms. Sandy Sanchez Montano, PhD, if you would like to share your thoughts on the questions. You might have to unmute your microphone first. Yeah, you have 1 minute.
Okay. Yeah. So for us parents, there's also a struggle and difficulty right now with the pandemic that's happening right now all over the world, because we would like to make the normalcy inside the home, but at the same time, we would make sure that our children are in advanced learning, or at the same time cope up with the classroom or the online classes. Okay, so here in the Philippines, we can say that we are both in National Capital Region. We are so fortunate to have a very good internet access. That's why when I receive emails and online instruction from the school of my child, I see to it that I prepare myself, I educate myself on how to do it, on how to prepare her, at the same time how this will be implemented. But the struggle of the internet connection, the difficulty is on the rural area, in the provinces, in the regions, wherein the internet access is quite slow, or sometimes there's no internet access at all. So the Department of Education, in partnership with some NGO, has a very good learning materials that they give in such a way that all the children, even when they are inside their home, they are given enough materials to learn. And at the same time, they were informed of what is the activities being done. So we are very, we can say that here in the Philippines, we have a struggle, but we find this struggle an opportunity and big possibility for us to really move on to build back better our education. So for those parents who are really having hard time to access online, okay, maybe I could suggest that you can do some partnering with other parents who have good access on internet, then you can download it. You can put it in your offline, like in your account, in your Facebook. You can put in your messenger. So all this information, okay, once you are at home, you can access it even though you don't have the online internet access. And also, there's a lot of TV station and radio station right now in the country that is really giving this mathematics, science information like the Knowledge Channel, all the different TV networks are giving a very nice information when it comes to learning and developing of our children. So far, I think that together we can work on this situation to find the normalcy, the new normal into a situation wherein we can hold hand each other and make a difference towards the learning education of our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Sandy, for sharing your thoughts. And now the last panelist that I would like to invite to share your thoughts on the questions is Dr. Christine. You might want to share something for 1 minute. Please unmute your microphone. Okay, yeah.
Okay, like I said earlier, from our community of practice, we discovered that we do not have difficult parents or families. We have families in difficult situations. Okay, so I believe that families in difficult situations, given the opportunity, okay, to get together, to discuss, I believe that they will come out with their own solution. Because we work with these Kickstart families, and our experience shows us that these parents have lots of ideas. It's just that we come to them and say, oh, okay, this is our first package and this is what we'll be offering. But actually, they have a lot. And so my suggestion is let's have a discourse with these families and find out. And I'm sure they have solutions. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Christine, for sharing your thought. And once again, thank you for all the keynote speakers and panelists to share your thoughts, your opinions, and lessons learned across the regions, and to all the participants. And now I would like to hand over the sessions to Dr. Ethel Agnes Pascua Valenzuela, the directors of SEAMEO Secretariat, to lead the sessions.
Thank you very much to our very amiable and very beautiful moderator for today. So, for this particular session, we have learned a lot from our keynote speakers and also from our, very good panelists from 8 countries. So we're very lucky that we have a lot of information on how to really prepare early childhood care and education in this new normal. Let me first thank our director from SEAMEO CECCEP, Dr. Dewey Riona and Dr. Haris Iskandar. They are really the best persons who are pushing forward ECE in Indonesia. We also would like to thank Dr. Sheldon Schaefer, who has always been a partner of SEAMEO and has been guiding us all along in the development as well of our Center for Early Childhood Care and Education and Parenting in Indonesia. Our experts on ECCE, Dr. Marek, thank you for sharing your time with us. And our speakers, Professor Liu from Korea, Professor Lam from Vietnam, Professor Vina from Indonesia, Dr. Sandy from the Philippines, Professor Kosal from Cambodia, Dr. Christine Chen from Singapore, and of course, those who joined us, 5,000 plus, participants today have really gave a lot of questions to us for us to consider in policy making. We cannot read all of them, but thank you so much for all those suggestions. So, according to our speakers, and Dr. Schaefer said that 1.5 billion children are actually affected all over the world, and 100 countries are still in lockdown and affected due to COVID-19 or C-19 as we call it. And with this situation, our early childhood care education, our early childhood care development programs, most of them are no longer accessible, and even without the technological support during this pandemic. We are also taking note that our ECE and ECD workforce will be depleted due to the economic hardship faced by families and everybody during this COVID-19 lockdown. There are a lot of lessons, beautiful lessons learned from the experience of New Zealand and other countries as well. Well, with this situation, what are the solutions that were given to us by our esteemed speakers? So from Dr. Schaefer, we learned about the 5 mitigation strategies. So we can think about continuing with the feeding programs, using all the sanitation requirements due to COVID, distance learning, home-based learning, visitations by teachers, family support, that's very important, and making up for the lost contact hours. So policymakers from the ministries of education should seriously consider these 5 mitigation strategies. We also learned from Korea a very good strategy, but we need to keep in mind that we need to develop these new teachers for the new normal with new kinds of skills and new knowledge. So teachers now can no longer be traditional face-to-face teachers. They need to make use of technology to be able to assist the learners. And what is good with Vietnam, I learned about having the national guidance for ECE during the pandemic that most teachers would be able to refer to on how they can conduct their classes. They also have national plan for ECE. Cambodia shared with us the technology support for ECE using television, broadcast lessons, radio stories. These are all very good models or modalities or platforms that we can use during this pandemic. Well, more than that, we learned from Singapore inclusive ECE and home-based learning packages. Very good stories, very good lessons learned from Singapore, and also that we should keep in mind that some families are in difficult situation, but there are no difficult families. Yeah, that will be in our mind and will ring to our mind. It comes to community of practice from Singapore also. Yes, as you see, community of practice was done not only in Singapore, but also I learned from Vietnam that, teachers, Cambodia, good teachers, they come together to share their videos, their lessons, acting as one. This is actually, it's like an approach, whole community approach to education. So that's very important to have conversations with educators as well. Then from the Philippines, we learned a lot about, good practices and also parenting trips and how to do community mapping, gathering data so that you can prepare proper intervention and sanitation protocols. Especially, we learned a lot about what they are doing in the Philippines in terms of reaching the unreached, ECE, and teachers who are in this difficult situation. We learned from Indonesia a lot about the educare and the teacher professional development. So these are actually important highlights of today's discussion. But from the SEAMEO Secretariat side, we need to do action. There should be action points. So I think we need to do more advocacy so that our educational community in the region would be able to adjust to what we call as the new normal, although we don't want this really a new normal phenomena, but it's just a new situation, new platform. We see a lot of social distancing in the classroom, making use of more technology, flexible learning modalities. You have to choose whether you do home-based learning or by open and distance learning. And so we can build a better ECE program. More than that, we can always think of policies to have better and more inclusive ECE with use of technology. I think this is the area where SEAMEO centers can really provide good intervention. Capacity building for teachers. Now it's virtual, that as we do the webinars, it's somehow contributing to new knowledge in this new normal. We can also learn a lot about enhancing our curriculum. In this pandemic, we have identified a lot of good teachers who can really do wonders, sharing their resources, doing their own videos to help ease out this lack of knowledge and materials during this pandemic. We should not forget also to include resilience and mental health in the curriculum. So normally most countries in Southeast Asia would redesign their curriculum every 5 years. It's time to take note of the resilience, mental health, psychosocial health as we design the new curriculum for this new normal situation. We should also recognize the important roles of parents and family members and ECCE programs. Emergency preparedness is something that we don't really envision to be happening in this 2020 when we're just starting our year. But emergency preparedness and resilience, these have always been part of the agenda and adopted by the Council of Ministers of Southeast Asia. So I think there are so many insights, so many learnings we have gained. And from time to time, you can also view this webinar and take down notes on important things that you can adopt in your own context and in your own situation. There are so many things we can do together, as we always say. But all we have to do is share every knowledge. If you can help the community, please do so. So we wish you well. Always stay safe. And please continue to watch our webinars. I would like to call on Ms. Auntie to share with us important announcement. Thank you very much for joining us today, and watch out for more. Bye.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ethel. And now it's time for the announcement for our participants that stay tuned in our YouTube channel. So we recognize most of you will need an e-certificate. So for those who need the certificate, you can access the link provided by SEAMEO CECCEP for validation and assessment that available at bit.ly/regwebinar feedback. So in this link, the participant required to provide the feedback on the given form, and also there will be some activities that participants have to fill up. Then during the time you fill up the form, please ensure the spelling of your name and email address are correct before submitting, because the e-certificate will be automatically sent to your email address. And for this e-certificate requirement will be, the deadline will be on the 15th June 2020 at 6 p.m. Bangkok time or Jakarta time, or 7 p.m. Philippines time. So after the deadline, there will be no submissions accepted. And after that, the e-certificate will be sent to your email within 10 working days. So please be patiently wait within 10 working days to get your e-certificate. For any inquiries, questions, please, you can always email advocacy-partnership@seameo-ceccep.org in Indonesia. And your e-certificate will be like the one that you can see in the screen. And you also can easily scan the QR code to validate or to verify your certificate afterwards. I think that's all the information, the announcement from us. See you